EMDR was a game changer for me, both personally and professionally. So in this video, I'm going to share my first experience with EMDR, as well as 5 ways that I know that experience changed my life. And if you stick around to the end, I'm also going to share a super cool realization that I recently had about that experience. So EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, was something that I had been a licensed practicing therapist for, I don't know, 10 or 15, 10-ish years, I think, when I finally decided to get trained in it. I had heard about it off and on. It was, still kind of fringe. It's not been that long ago. I was trained in it 12 years ago, but it wasn't at that point near as well known as it is now. And so I always wondered, does it actually do what some people say it does? Because there's a lot of other people that say it doesn't. But it just came up one time on, I don't know, an email or a feed of some sort. And I knew, like in that moment, that I needed to get trained. I looked up the trainings. There was one coming up, I think like the next weekend. All the pieces fell into place so that it was just easy and obvious. It was like one of those things I needed to do. So I had never experienced it before. I didn't know anything about it, had no clue what I was getting myself into, and I took off to Atlanta for my weekend 1 training. So it was at the weekend 2 training that my first like really impactful experience with it happened. I had been in my room knowing that there was a question that I wanted to ask in front of the group. And I had previously had social phobia, which had cleared up so much. I didn't have social phobia anymore, but most people do have that nervousness about asking a question in a room, which is absolutely absurd. Like there's no danger whatsoever, but I had this anxiety about asking this question. But I was always asking, where is this coming from? And I really learned with EMDR to always float things back, because our reactivity that's happening in today is not about today the vast majority of the time. So I was like, okay, this seems like something that I could work on. So during our practice session that day, we pair off with other therapists and we bring a memory to the table that's not like one of your highest, like big trauma memories, big T traumas. It's just something that you're willing to kind of feel and be present with and experience in front of other people in a situation like that. So I picked a memory. Well, I was thinking about the anxiety, and in thinking about the anxiety that I had that morning, you float that back. You kind of go inside, you feel where you feel it in your body, and you notice any negative self-beliefs. Well, the negative self-belief that came up was something along the lines of, I'm not important, I don't matter. And there were a lot of things in my childhood that led me to that conclusion. But the memory that came up that kind of represented this, and this is one of those situations where it's not going to be a big T trauma memory, but this is the memory that came up, and it was, I was 7 or 8 years old. It was, my mom was a single mom. We had both lived through some trauma with my dad, and she was just doing her best, kind of trying to make ends meet and going to work. And I always had to get myself off to school in the morning to go to the bus stop on my own. And I had a key, of course, to get in. I missed the bus this one morning. And instead of coming back to our apartment and going in the door, I wanted to make a point that I should be being taken care of, and I was feeling alone and neglected. And so I sat down on the doormat right in front of our apartment door, and I was going to just wait there for her until she got home. So she felt bad. Not that as a single working mom who had already had so much loss, she didn't feel bad enough already, but I was looking at it from the child's perspective. So the school bus ended up coming and getting me. Like the little tardy bus would like drive around to the schools, to the places where the students who didn't show up to school and nobody had called. So I ended up going to school that day anyway. However, that was the representational memory that I had. And so as we sat down, started processing it, she sat across from me. And instead of doing eye movements, for whatever reason, I just didn't like the eye movements, we were doing tapping. So she was tapping on my knees. And after several sets, so you do the tapping, and then the therapist asks, what do you notice? And of course, and I have another video that explains the whole reprocessing session if you want to check that out. But she'd asked me what I noticed, and after several sessions, I started feeling like all of this emotion welling up and all of this intensity like taking over my body, and I was crying, and she stopped to ask me what I was noticing, and I was like, keep going. I just needed her to continue because there was something happening inside that I had never experienced before. So in that experience, what happened was that I had just this undeniable, overwhelming sensation that my mom passed away in an accident when I was 9, so not long after this memory. But I had this overwhelming sensation that if she had more time on earth to work on her own stuff and grow and change with me, she would have let me know how important that I was, that I in fact was deeply loved by her, and that I was important. And I felt how important I was in that moment. So we finished reprocessing the thing, and I just was in I don't know, highly emotional, but it was like this bittersweet, I want more of this kind of emotion for really the next 24 or 48 hours. I was weepy for the rest of the night, and I felt this awareness that I mattered, that I was important. There were other memories that still needed to be taken care of, but that was a game changer for me because I now had this particular neural network that I wasn't having to cognitively tell myself that I mattered, that I was important, that I was worth listening to, that I was worth raising my hand and having a question and getting an answer. It was something I was feeling in the depths of my soul, the truth of this. And so that experience changed me forever. It didn't change my life completely and all at once. What it did was, as it rewired something really powerful inside of me, I had a new filter I was seeing things through. I already had healed a lot over the years, and I had gone through CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. As a therapist, I had always tried every new thing, and I was always learning a new thing, a new skill, and everything I tried, I would use on myself and experience myself. And I had healed a lot, but nothing that I had done in the 20-ish years of healing prior to this had the impact that this had. So I started making changes in my life as I'm filtering now through, I simply am important. I'm as important as anyone else. And some of the things that began to change included, one, I felt a huge weight off of my shoulders, out of my life. I felt freer in a way I'd never felt free before. Two, the ways that I used to would have been interacting with other people where I would have felt unimportant or left out or like I didn't matter, which would just shut me down or ignite my anger, those all started to just like go away. Three, as my filter changed and I wasn't seeing other people's reactions or actions or whatever they were doing as an indication of my own value, my relationships started to change. My anger at the world decreased exponentially, and I started making changes in my life as if I were actually important. Four, I actually started to travel internationally. I had always wanted to my entire life. Of course, you know, so many people want to go to Italy and Greece, and those were always my top two. And I did finally start putting everything in motion to make that happen. I couldn't afford it like right away, but I started shifting, and scarcity mentality kind of started to decrease along with this change. And the fifth way that it changed my life was how it changed my professional life. I was practicing on all my clients, and I would get in the car at the end of the day and just be weeping in this like just grateful, joyful kind of place. I couldn't believe what was happening. People that I had worked with, and again, I was primarily CBT at the time. CBT is great, but it's not a bottom-up therapy. It doesn't activate the brain in the way that it needs to be activated to release trauma from the body. And I just couldn't believe these places that I had been kind of banging my head against the wall. What do I need to do to help this person? and they were like releasing things so quickly. And I just was super grateful. And so it became the primary thing that I do in my work. I do a lot of other stuff. There's lots of great, helpful stuff out there. So EMDR is not all I do, but it is the primary, and it is my number one thing for helping people to release the trauma and pain of the past. So all of that said, I should give the disclaimer that though EMDR sometimes, often, feels like a miracle, it's not. And there are people that it doesn't seem to work for. In my experience, they're fewer and further between than those that it does work for. And I think that there are a lot of reasons. I think that if all of the pieces of the puzzle are right, therapist and client work together, the therapist is skilled with whatever the client's got going on, with whatever the thing is, I feel like it could probably be helpful for everybody. I don't have any proof of that. I just feel like that's probably true. And the bonus. I just realized 12 years after this initial experience that what actually happened there was an IADC, induced after death communication. IADC is a modified version of EMDR that was developed accidentally by a psychologist named Al Botkin, who worked at the VA hospital in Chicago. And I will talk more about it in another video, but just suffice it to say that what I realized now after seeing many people have ADCs and learning more about that the reason that EMDR experience was so impactful for me was because it was the spirit of my mom. It was the love of my mom enveloping me. So you can look at that as, yep, actually that's what happened, or you can be like, that was just a trick of the brain. Doesn't matter, because whatever it was life-changing for me forever, and I felt a love like I had never felt before. So that's it. Thank you for listening to this video all the way to the end. I hope it inspires you on your own healing journey. Please like, subscribe, comment, share this video with anybody who you think it might be helpful to. And I appreciate you, and I will see you again.